Chapter 950. Dragon scales appeared. Ao Xieyun's muscles bulged. Dense dragon scales appeared from his ankles and then spread up his legs at an extremely fast speed. In a short while, they had reached his chest. Author's note, translated by Chiomira, edited by Aelrianth. They continued to climb up. Neck, face, ahead. Slowly, his whole body was shining with a golden light. On his forehead, 2 protrusions were slowly growing, like 2 dragon horns breaking out of his skin. Ao Xieyun held his breath and let out a long and loud roar. He exhaled and shouted continuously. At this moment, he suddenly opened his eyes and shouted, "Now!" With a clang, Jiyu Duxing, who was already a 7th grade sword sovereign, drew his black dragon sword. With a flash of sword light, it reached Ao Xieyun's chest. At this moment, a dragon scale on Ao Xieyun's chest suddenly disappeared, revealing his heart. Jiyu Duxing did not hesitate. With a flash of sword light, it pierced into his chest. With a spin, he retracted his sword at lightning speed and retreated. Ao Xieyun looked up to the sky and screamed. A column of blood spurted out from his chest and fell into the mouth of the huge dragon statue in the secret ground. The next moment, this huge dragon statue, which was as tall as a dozen people, suddenly emitted a blazing red light, illuminating the entire secret ground in a red color. Soaring proudly, soaring across the sky, 10,000 years, first dragon transformation. A murmur of chanting sounded. The secret ground, which was tightly sealed, slowly separated into 2 sides. A round hole was revealed. The red light shone, but it was so deep that one could not see the bottom. Jiyu Duxing rushed forward and shouted, "Go in." He grabbed Ao Xieyun's waist and rushed into the hole at lightning speed. Mo Tianji followed closely behind, and Xie Danqiong followed closely behind. Ji Mo and Xie Danqiong entered almost at the same time. Luo Kedi was the last to enter, but at this moment, the hole had already begun to close. Second young master Luo cried out. His body had already entered, but half of his buttocks were clamp. What the fuck? Luo Kedi wanted to cry but failed to shed any tears. He fiercely tore off a piece of flesh from his buttocks, and only then was he able to free himself. He grimaced in pain, but he didn't dare to slow down at all. Second young master Luo ran as fast as he could, with blood dripping from his buttocks. This young master is too pitiful. People describe it as a coincidence, but this young master has really squeezed my butt. Second young master Luo wrinkled his face, and was about to cry, "This image, damn it, it's as if I'm running for my life even though I've contracted hemorrhoids. Today, I'm wearing white clothes to show my elegance and attract the attention of a girl. My noble and upright image is completely ruined, the mountain wall had been sealed, and the inside of the cave was filled with milky white light." He ran at full speed, and as he walked, the passage behind him was sealed. The rumbling sounds were endless, and he really didn't dare to stop at all. Especially second young master Luo, who was at the back, felt that his buttocks would be clamped again at any time. He didn't even dare to look back along the way. He didn't know how far he had run, and the terrain began to descend, and he didn't know how deep it was. After a full hour, he reached a relatively wide area. The passage behind him was sealed, and no longer continued. Everyone finally let out a sigh of relief. From the looks of it, it should be sealed in the belly of a mountain that was sealed deep underground. Luo Kedi stopped his footsteps with a shua sound. He breathed in cold air, and only now had the time to treat the wound on his buttocks. Jimo heard the dripping sounds, and turned around to look. He couldn't help but cry out, "Damn. Miss Luo, your period came? Why didn't you prepare any protection?" In such a tense atmosphere, when Jimo's words came out, everyone turned around to look, and immediately burst out laughing. Even the cold-faced Jiyu Du-Xing revealed a trace of a smile. With this guy Jimo following, there was no lack of jokes at any time. Luo Kedi's face twisted, and he fiercely said, "Get lost." Since there were no women here, second young master Luo directly took off all his clothes. It was really inconvenient for him to do it himself, so he stuck out his buttocks, and said to Jimo, "Come, apply medicine on my buttocks." Jimo retched, and covered his nose. He took out some medicine. "Don't fucking fart at this time." "I'm coming." Suddenly, There was laughter. Luo Kedi's head was sweating from the pain, and he couldn't help but laugh until his whole body twitched. Marshal Yin Yang, everyone turned to look, and saw that this cave was about 100 feet wide, and the stone walls were smooth. Perhaps even a gecko wouldn't be able to stay on top of it. In the opposite direction, there were 3 passages, and they were still dark. Everyone was stunned. How could there be 3 passages? They all looked at Ao Xieyun, and Ao Xieyun was also at a loss. He spread out his hands, and shrugged his shoulders, indicating that he didn't want to kill a sheep. At this moment, the whole earth suddenly seemed to tremble, and a buzzing sound came from below, as if there were millions of people praying in an extremely distant place. The sound got closer, and gradually, it reached them like an avalanche. Tribulation completed, the sky red, the dragon soars, dominating the sky. It was still a murmuring voice, tirelessly repeating the same words over and over again. The ground trembled, and slowly cracked. A dragon head statue slowly rose from the ground, its mouth wide open. Then, it quieted down and stood in front of Ao Xieyun. Again, Ao Xieyun blinked. "How much blood do I have to release?" Mo Tianji said. "There's no other choice." "It seems like we can only release your blood today." Ji Mo applied medicine on Luo Kedi's buttocks as he said, "It's a pity that Miss Luo's blood can't be used, otherwise, you would have saved so much. Look at how much it's dripping along the way." Luo Kedi stuck out his buttocks, cursing continuously. Ao Xieyun said angrily, "Even if it can be used, it's still the blood of the buttocks, how can it be the same? It's too dirty." Everyone laughed, and Luo Kedi finally stood up, gritting his teeth. He said angrily, "All of you are bullying me. No one comforts me when I'm injured." Ji Mo gave Luo Kedi's buttocks, which had just been bandaged, a slap. While Luo Kedi jumped up in pain, Ji Mo had already said, "Actually, you should be glad that you're a man. If you were a woman and spent every day with us, you would have gotten pregnant long ago. Get lost." Everyone roared together, and Mo Tianji was no exception. Ao Xieyun laughed, and at the same time, he activated the cultivation bloodline in his body. Ji Duxing mercilessly struck again, and a blood arrow shot into the dragon's mouth again. The hole on the left lit up for a moment, and then slowly closed, leaving only the one on the right open. Is this the power of the bloodline? Mo Tianji pondered. A figure flashed, and Luo Kedi had already rushed to the front. With a whoosh, he went in. "This time, I want to be in front," second young Master Luo said excitedly. "Let's see who's the one who's going to get caught." Turning around, he saw the other 5 people slowly walking in with smiles on their faces. Ji Mo said disdainfully, "Idiot, this hole is not sealed." Luo Kedi was dumbfounded. He stomped his feet and thumped his chest. This time, it was relatively stable. Everyone walked in one after another. Mo Tianji said, "Duxing, don't support Ao Xieyun. Let him walk in front. We'll just follow behind him." Ji Duxing agreed. Ao Xieyun had lost too much blood, and was already a little dazed. However, after drinking a few mouthfuls of water, his spirits were lifted. "Xieyun, don't cover the wound on your chest. Leave it open, and let the smell of your blood spread out," Mo Tianji instructed calmly. "Okay." Ao Xieyun didn't say anything else. He walked in with his wound open. "Luo Kedi, you'll still be at the back," Mo Tianji ordered again. He had never been to such a place before, but based on his intuition and the word bloodline, he thought of many things. Luo Kedi walked back in confusion and asked, "Why?" Xie Danqiong glared at him and said in a low voice, "This place is activated by the power of the bloodline. You're injured. If you walk in front, the smell of your blood will cover the smell of Ao Xieyun's bloodline." "Stupid, you can't even think of this." Luo Kedi was shocked. "Sorry, I didn't think of it. This is also my guess. It may not be accurate," Mo Tianji said, "but in the future, when you encounter such complicated and strange things, you must listen to the command. Otherwise, if you take a wrong step, all of us will be finished." Mo Tianji looked at the others with some warning. The brothers nodded. He was making use of this incident to give his brothers another psychological hint to further ensure their safety. Because Mo Tianji knew that there were too many strange places and powerful enemies in the upper three heavens. If they didn't make thorough preparations in the upper three heavens, they would only be courting death if they rushed up one day. And Ao Xieyun opening the treasure of the dragon race this time made Mo Tianji even more certain that he and his brothers would definitely be able to rush up to the upper three heaven. The awakening of the bloodline wasn't without reason. Since it existed, it would be of great use. Moreover, that murmur also accurately said, 10,000 years, the beginning of the transformation into a dragon. In particular, the words 10,000 years made Mo Tianji feel that there was a hint of destiny. Mo Tianji felt uncomfortable when he heard the word destiny. It was as if everything wasn't under his control. He couldn't help but think, if Chu Yang was here, what would he do? What would he think? Everyone entered in a single file. After walking for a few thousand feet, Mo Tianji finally relaxed. As he walked, he smeared a special kind of fragrance on the stone walls along the way without leaving a trace. Although he knew that this kind of awakening of the bloodline wouldn't be dangerous, Mo Tianji still instinctively started to prepare for a rainy day. The further they walked, the wider it became. The milky white fog also became thicker and thicker. Breathing in this milky white spiritual energy made one feel extremely comfortable. It was as if the cultivation in one's body was improving with every breath. There was a bend in the road ahead. A faint red light shone through. Everyone quickened their pace and walked over. The moment they turned the bend, the brothers couldn't help but be stunned. Right in front of them was a large milky white space. It was at least a few thousand feet wide. It was simply inconceivable that there was such a large space underground. In the center of this space, there was a huge golden dragon lying there silently. A pair of eyes emitted a blood-red light as it looked at everyone. In 2 years, it's the first time I've charged up the monthly votes list. I hope everyone will support me. I hope this month can be like this, soaring proudly, soaring through the sky. But I don't need 10,000 years. This time is enough. If it's 10,000 years, I reckon I'll have reincarnated to become the master of the Calamity Sword. I woke up at 3 in the morning. I've only written 2 chapters until now. I'll change the second chapter and send it out later. Requesting monthly votes. Chapter 951. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. The dragon was more than 10 feet long. Its body was soft and gentle, but it had a natural aura of elegance and power. Martial yin-yang. When everyone saw it, they felt a wave of shock in their hearts. They did not even dare to breathe. It was a natural dragon's aura. After a moment of silence, they realized that the dragon was not moving at all. Although its eyes were shining, it was definitely not a living creature. There were a few antique shelves around it, covered in a layer of white fog. After wiping them, they realized that these shelves were made of purple crystal. On them, there were secret manuals made of beast skin, sabers, swords, fists, and legs. Basically, all the weapons one could think of were here. Then, there was a single shelf. On it, there was a big book made of purple crystal, and a shining pearl. In this milky white land of spiritual energy, this pearl was like a star. After 10,000 years, it still did not change its color. Divine Dragon Secret Manual. Those who do not have the dragon bloodline cannot learn it. On the purple crystal shelf, there was a line of words. On the stone wall opposite, there were a few lines of words. The Divine Dragon Clan originated from the east of the firmament. It has been a long time, and no one can verify it. Today, the heavens have collapsed. With the power of the dragon ancestor, this place was established. Descendants of the future, do not be idle. The original power of the firmament is here. One dragon pearl. The firmament's divine essence, countless secret manuals. If you do not succeed, do not leave this place. Descendants of the inherited bloodline need to remember that if one day you can travel the firmament, you can go to the east and fulfill the regret of the dragon clan for hundreds of thousands of years. It was a very simple and clear sentence. It was half a sentence and half a sentence. It also showed that the level of the divine dragon lord who left these words was only passable. Ao Xieyun only felt his heart wavering. He could not help but walk forward, wanting to take the Divine Dragon's secret manual. Just as his palm touched the Divine Dragon's secret tome, the pearl beside it suddenly shone brightly. Then, it slowly flew up and soared into the air. Then, it flew one round around Ao Xieyun, as if it was confirming something. Finally, it turned into a ray of light and drilled into Ao Xieyun's bleeding chest wound, disappearing from sight. Ao Xieyun only felt a sudden dizziness in his head. He was in a daze. He seemed to have understood something, and also seemed to have come into contact with something. However, everything was illusory and unfathomable. Net after a long while, he finally regained his senses. He saw that his 5 brothers were standing in front of him, looking at him with concern. Ao Xieyun's heart warmed. I'm fine. This is a Dragon Ball. It has fused with my bloodline. So that's how it is. Mo Tianji smiled in relief. Xieyun, congratulations. Looks like you're really going to transform into a dragon. Ao Xieyun smiled and nodded. Jimo suddenly interrupted. He worriedly said, what should we do then? I say, old Ao Xieyun, if you really transform into a dragon, of course your body will have to become bigger. Correspondingly, that thing will also have to become bigger. There is really no one who can stand you. In this world, where can we find a female dragon for you? Hearing this, everyone was petrified on the spot. They didn't know whether to laugh or cry. They really didn't understand how this guy's brain worked. Every time he looked at a problem, he could always think of this aspect that made them not know whether to laugh or cry. Ao Xieyun's face was distorted as he said, you don't have to worry about this. Suddenly, he said angrily, Jimo, you're meddling in too many things. Mo Tianji looked at Jimo with disappointment and helplessness. You idiot, he only has the bloodline of the dragon race. It's not like he's directly a dragon. He's still like this normally. Why can't he do it? Jimo scratched his head. He was a little embarrassed and said, I just felt a little emotional when I saw this dragon. According to this ratio, if Ao Xieyun really does that thing, it will have to be at least this thick. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and gestured, circling a space as thick as a person's calf. Then, he shook his head and said, no, it has to be at least as thick as Luo Kudi's head, fuck you. Luo Kudi immediately pounced on him in anger. The two of them immediately wrestled. The others looked at these 2 buffoons helplessly. They really didn't know what to say. When we go back, I'll tell Aobua about your past affairs. Luo Kudi's face was black with anger. Jimo, just you wait. Sir. You're my dear sir. Jimo screamed and rushed forward to apologize. He cried miserably, look at my thin arms and legs. That big sister can send me flying with one slap. I'm already in deep water and suffering. Don't add insult to injury. As he said this, he actually smiled wretchedly, but fortunately, I had the foresight to find the boss and get the medicine. Now, I'm also very powerful. Ha ha ha, everyone shook their heads and sighed. They couldn't do anything about this buffoon. Mo Tianji had heard Jimo talk about this huge dragon, so he paid attention to it. He walked over to take a look. Ao Xieyun also went over. Even though Jimo was talking nonsense, Ao Xieyun still secretly glanced at the huge dragon's crotch. Then, he suddenly opened his mouth wide. He lowered his head to look at his own crotch, and shook his head repeatedly. The corner of Mo Tianji's mouth secretly twitched. He whispered, are you ashamed of your inferiority? Ao Xieyun's face was red. He said angrily, Tianji, you're also making a fuss. I'm really. During this period of time, the brothers were together every day. They didn't have any taboos when they talked. Ao Xieyun smiled bitterly and changed the topic. Legend has it that there should be a hidden treasure of a calamity sword master here. Why haven't I seen it? Mo Tianji shook his head. This should be a rumor. This place existed when the world was destroyed. At that time, even the first calamity sword master hadn't appeared yet. How could there be a hidden treasure of a calamity sword master here? Ao Xieyun laughed. I'm a little greedy. Mo Tianji also laughed. He approached the dragon, stretched out his finger, and tapped on the dragon's body, saying, this thing doesn't look like a real dragon. But this material is really strange. It actually seems a little warm. The two circled around the dragon and finally found words on the other side: heavenly origin energy of heaven and earth. Consume divine essence first, then absorb origin energy. If you can't absorb it, don't leave this place. The two of them sucked in a breath of cold air. This enormous dragon was actually an entire piece of heavenly source energy, and from the meaning of these words, they couldn't leave until they finished absorbing it. How long would it take to absorb it? Even if they worked together, they probably wouldn't be able to absorb it in a short period of time. At the very least, it might take a year. If they were slow, it would take him 8 to 10 years. Below this line of words, there were neatly arranged pieces of shiny things that looked like stars. Mo Tianji reached out and picked one up. It felt warm and soft to the touch. At the same time, he felt a strong desire in his stomach. It was as if he desperately wanted to eat this thing. Before he could resist, this thing had already flown into Mo Tianji's mouth. It melted in his mouth and turned into a warm current, entering his meridians. At the same time, 5 of the other 8 pieces of heavenly origin energy flew up from the dragon's body and entered the mouths of Ao Xieyun, Jiyu Duxing, Xiedan Qiong, Jimo, and Luo Ku Di respectively. Then, the milky white fog in the entire space suddenly thickened. Milky white spiritual energy slowly spewed out from the dragon's mouth, filling the entire space. So this pure spiritual energy of heaven and earth is produced by this dragon. No, this piece of heavenly origin energy. As long as these heavenly origin energy are taken out from here, the heavenly origin energy will evaporate faster. What an exquisite design! Mo Tianji exclaimed. Jiyu Duxing stepped forward and said in a deep voice, "This is a rare treasure. It's also a rare blessing. It's a pity that Big Brother, Wu Shong, and Biyu Tong aren't here. Otherwise, it would be great if we could absorb it and cultivate together." At the mention of Chu Yang, everyone fell silent. Their moods instantly became very heavy. Until now, there had been no news of Chu Yang. After a long time, Mo Tianji took a deep breath and said, "Don't worry, everyone. It's useless to think about anything now. We can only do our own things now. If Chu Yang isn't dead, he will definitely meet up with us." Ji Mo, who had been laughing all this time, was silent at this moment. Suddenly, he asked, "But at that time, will the Heavenly Armament Pavilion still be the Heavenly Armament Pavilion?" When this sentence came out, the atmosphere immediately became heavy. Mo Tianji took a deep breath and solemnly raised his hand. "I swear that the Heavenly Armament Pavilion will still be the Heavenly Armament Pavilion at that time." He put down his hand with a bitter smile and said lightly, "I know that you've always been worried about this, but I promised Chu Yang that I would accompany him to dance with the wind and clouds in the sky. To be free and unrestrained in the world together, to be proud and wild together." He said heavily, "Chu Yang isn't here now, but we are. The Heavenly Armament Pavilion is still here. So I'll do my part for him. If Chu Yang is still alive, there will be a day when we stand side by side in the heavens. If Chu Yang is dead, the Heavenly Armament Pavilion will immediately disband. Don't think that I've been controlling you all this time. In fact, I can't do anything. In this world, besides Chu Yang, there is no one else who can control you." Ji Mo's expression softened. He rubbed his nose and said embarrassedly, "I'm sorry." Mo Tianji patted his shoulder and smiled understandingly, "I can understand you. It's a good thing that you value your brothers. Why would I blame you?" He said lightly, "In the past, I only wanted to be free and unrestrained. I wanted to control the world in the palm of my hand. I wanted to move the wind and clouds with a wave of my hand. That was my life's ambition. But now that I think about it, although that was glorious, it was also lonely. I only understood it when I met you all." Mo Tianji smiled warmly. His eyes shone with sincerity. He said slowly, "Only with brothers can one be happy. Only with brothers can one be happy." The other 5 people silently repeated this sentence. Their eyes shone. If you don't experience things together, if you don't go through life and death together, if you don't go through hardships together, you will never understand what kind of feelings are contained in this word. And understanding. Because you have brothers, your heart will no longer be lonely and wandering. You won't always look at people with distrust. You won't feel lonely and your heart will be at peace. Because I know that even if the whole world is against me, I won't be lonely. Mo Tianji was silent for a long time. Then, he said, after we absorb all of this, there won't be many people in this world who can do anything to us. There's one thing I can tell you. Jiu Duxing frowned and asked, what is it? Mo Tianji said solemnly, everyone here is my brother. Don't let anyone else know about this. The five of them looked at each other. They didn't know what he was going to say. Mo Tianji's eyes shone brightly. He said word by word, the reason why I firmly believe that Chu Yang is not dead is because Chu Yang is very likely to be the Tribulation Sword Master who came out to face this tribulation. Add 400 more words to this chapter. Many people don't like me describing my brothers, so I can only add more words to the extra words. And Mo Tianji's understanding this time is also what I have been understanding these few days. I am not lonely because I have all of you. I am not fighting alone because I have all of you with me. These few days, all of you have given me too much warmth and touched me, just as Mo Tianji said, only with brothers can one be happy. That's why I wrote some of my own things at the end of the chapter, including ugly things and happy things. Because I want to share all of my emotions with all of you. I want all of you to smile because of me, even if it's my embarrassing things. I'm very happy to be able to exchange for your smiles. Because I've finally brought you some joy. Many people don't like what I wrote, but I can't help it. Haha. I once said that if you read one of my books, including the nonsense at the end of my chapters, I'll make you feel that I'm real in front of you. I care about all of you. Thank you. These few days, I'm very touched and satisfied. Chapter 952. Mo Tianji's eyes shone brightly. He said word by word, the reason why I firmly believe that Chu Yang is not dead is because Chu Yang is very likely to be the Tribulation Sword Master who came out of this tribulation. The moment this sentence came out, it was simply earth-shattering. It was as if a bolt from the blue had suddenly struck the hearts of the brothers. In an instant, the brothers fell silent. Ji Mo's body trembled. Luo Ku Di's body swayed. Ao Xie Yun suddenly turned to look at Mo Tianji. Xiedan Qiong clutched his heart. A deathly silence. Master of Calamity Sword? Luo Ku Di's lips trembled. The dragon-like Master of Calamity Sword? Is our boss. Mo Tianji said slowly, I'm not sure. However, based on all the signs, the possibility of Chu Yang being the Master of Calamity Sword is close to 70%. Ao Xie Yun and the rest also swayed. Mo Tianji's temper was never one to be full of promises. Normally, even if he was 100% sure of something, he would only say 80%. 80% was Mo Tianji's limit. Anything he did, he would always leave an unknown variable. Therefore, Mo Tianji always had a backup plan. Now, Mo Tianji said that the possibility of Chu Yang being the Master of Calamity Sword was close to 70%. Then, based on everyone's understanding of him, the possibility of Mo Tianji being the Master of Calamity Sword was close to 50%. Thinking of this, everyone felt dizzy. The Master of Calamity Sword was an eternal legend in the Heavenly Layer continent for 100,000 years. Every 10,000 years, there would be a Master of Calamity Sword who would come out to cleanse the Heavenly Layer continent. Every 10,000 years, there would be a Master of Calamity Sword who would come out to cleanse the Heavenly Layer continent. The ruling clan of the Upper Three Heavens was the clan that followed this brother of the Master of Calamity Sword. As long as they could follow the Master of Calamity Sword, they would bring 10,000 years of glory to their clan. Calamity Sword Master. The Heavenly Layer continent was the true ruler. Ao Xie Yun rubbed his forehead and said with a groan, this is really unexpected. It feels as unreal as a dream. The brothers who usually drink, chat, fight, and joke with each other are the Tribulation Sword Masters who are high above the masses like gods. Xiedan Qiong forced a smile. His handsome face was flushed with excitement. He wanted to control his emotions by force, but he couldn't. His whole body trembled as he said, cough cough, cough cough cough. Qianghua, who had always been graceful and calm, was unable to say a word at this moment. She felt her throat was blocked by saliva. She kept coughing and clearing her throat, but she felt more and more phlegm in her throat. Jimo trembled, and then trembled again. Finally, he moaned, "My pores are all opened because of your words. They are shaking. Boss is the master of Calamity Sword. I am going to defecate." Luo Kedi's legs went soft and he almost fell on his butt. He suddenly burst into tears of joy. "I'm not dreaming, am I?" Mo Tianji's throat was also swallowing something. He had vaguely guessed it in his heart, but when he said it out loud, he still felt that indescribable excitement and speechless shock. He felt as if electricity was running through his body. It was really as Jimo said, the pores all over his body were opened. He looked sideways and saw Jiyu Duxing holding the black dragon sword and standing at the side. He was actually expressionless. Mo Tianji was surprised. "Duxing, aren't you surprised at all?" A smile appeared on Jiyu Duxing's statue-like face like a spring breeze. His smile slowly widened. He let out a long breath and murmured, "So he is really not dead." Suddenly, he laughed and said happily, "So he is really not dead." Without any warning, he punched Mo Tianji in the stomach and laughed. "So he is really not dead." Mo Tianji was caught off guard. This punch almost made his internal organs churn. He held his stomach and bent down. He shouted angrily, "Bastard! What are you doing?" Then, he saw Jiyu Duxing rushing over and hugging him. He laughed and jumped as he shouted, "Big brother is not dead. Boss is not dead. Ha ha ha." Mo Tianji's stomach was in pain from his punch, but he was still affected by his sincere feelings. He smiled and said, "Yes, he is not dead. He is not dead. Ha ha ha." Jiyu Duxing laughed. Net after he had vented his emotions a little, Mo Tianji groaned and asked, "Duxing, did you already know that Big Brother is the master of Calamity Sword?" Jiyu Duxing smiled. He leaned on his sword and said, "I have been with Boss for the longest time. I always felt that he was not ordinary, but I never thought of digging up his secrets. I had a feeling that he was the master of the Calamity Sword, but I was not sure." He smiled. "It doesn't matter. Whether he is the master of the Calamity Sword or an ordinary person, he is still Chu Yang. He is our brother. Since that is the case, what does it matter if he is the master of the Calamity Sword?" Jiyu Duxing smiled and said, "I never doubt my brother, and I don't want to dig up his secrets. On this point, Dong Wushong should have the same temperament as me." Mo Tianji pondered. After a long time, he said, "Yes, you are more honest than me." Jiyu Duxing smiled and shook his head. He said, "Everyone has their own feelings and missions. Your specialty is scheming, and resourcefulness. If you're as real as I am, then the future of us brothers may not be as good." Mo Tianji laughed out loud. He laughed until tears came out of his eyes. "Duxing, this sentence of yours is the most interesting sentence I have ever heard." Jiyu Duxing chuckled. On the side, Jimo grabbed Luo Kudi. "Second young master Luo, did you hear that? If Boss is the master of the Calamity Sword, won't our clan be able to survive for 10,000 years? Luo Kudi was also excited. "Yes." But then their faces fell. Luo Kudi said with a sad face, "Now in the three heavens, my brother already sees me as a thorn in his side. If that is the case, doesn't it mean that I will have to endure for 10,000 years? What big clan?" Jiyu Duxing got angrier and angrier. "Big clan? Just the two of you, good-for-nothings? Now you are already planning that kind of thing? If you dare to talk nonsense again, I will break your legs one by one. Now that Boss is not here, who dares to mention big clan to me?" Jiyu Duxing said angrily, "You are rebelling." Luo Kudi and Jimo kept quiet out of fear. Jimo said, "I was just kidding. You can't even joke." Jiyu Duxing said angrily, "Are you following Boss because you want to become a big clan?" He felt the same way as he did back then. True brothers with affection. Even if you die, you have no regrets. If you don't have affection, even if you become a big clan, you will only be despised. After saying that, Jiyu Duxing glared at the two of them. "I know you are joking, but once this kind of thing is rooted in your heart, you will slowly fall from this team. Now, you two go and practice. While you are practicing in this space, I will keep an eye on you." If your progress is slow, it means your heart is in a mess. If your heart is in a mess, it means you want to become a big clan again. Yes, I will find you at any time to have a good talk and learn from each other. Jimo and Luo Kudi cried out at the same time. You are really kidding, but Jiu Duxing had already turned around. He ignored them. Jimo sighed. What should we do? It is all your fault. Luo Kudi covered his butt and sighed. Second brother Jiu is like this. Let's practice well. After a few days, we will join hands to beat him up ruthlessly and turn him into a soft second brother. That will be all. Jimo laughed out loud. Then, he suddenly remembered something. He fiercely slapped Luo Kudi's buttocks, and said as if he had suddenly realized something, I understand now. Luo Kudi was slapped on his wound. He was in so much pain that he wanted to die. He frowned. Fuck. What are you doing? Jimo said gloomily. I just remembered that boss doesn't take oaths seriously. Once something happens, he will say, I swear in the name of Calamity Sword, ****. Now I understand that boss was just playing with his mouth. We all know that swearing in the name of Calamity Sword is the most important oath in the heavenly layer. Who would have thought that that guy is the master of Calamity Sword? Jimo didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The master of Calamity Sword controls the Calamity Sword, and the master of Calamity Sword swears in the name of Calamity Sword. Isn't that just bullshit? No wonder boss is so relaxed. He just opened his mouth and said it. Before, I was worried that boss would just say one sentence whenever he opened his mouth. This is too casual. Now I know that everything boss said was bullshit. Luo Kudi covered his butt and laughed. Boss is really interesting. Jiu Duxing frowned. Why haven't I heard boss mention this before? Jimo said angrily, you're just a taciturn person. Does boss need to swear in front of you? Damn it, last time in the far north wastelands, boss and I were arguing about the gender of a snow wolf. Boss said, I swear in the name of Calamity Sword that this snow wolf is female. Then I spent a lot of effort to catch it, but it was male. Boss said that it wasn't the one he was talking about. The one he was talking about was obviously female. Fuck, catching a snow wolf in the far north wastelands. Look at how fast the snow wolf runs. Everyone was laughing so hard that they fell over. Catching a snow wolf in the far north wastelands. This guy really made them speechless. Luo Kudi said, twitching all over, boss is asking you to practice your lightness techniques. Mo Tianji cleared his throat and said, everyone, stop fooling around. Chu Yang is right not to tell us. After all, we're not strong enough. Once our identities are revealed, we'll be doomed eternally. The reason why I'm telling you now is because we can't get out of here. I'm just giving you guys something to think about. Secondly, it's also because of this heavenly origin energy. Such a huge piece of it, at least tens of thousands of pounds. If it all turns into spiritual energy and turns into cultivation, even if we split it evenly, everyone can at least reach the high level of martial saint. This is the lowest estimate. In this way, even in the upper three heavens, we'll have the power to protect ourselves. So, the main task now is to practice martial art. Mo Tianji said seriously, don't stop practicing martial arts. Start immediately. When we come out of seclusion, it'll be time for us to kill our way up to the upper three heavens. In the afternoon, the deputy moderator gave me a link. I clicked on it and saw that it was Long Meng's comments on other books. Suddenly, my heart felt warm. I was silent for a long time and couldn't say a word. Long Meng has done his best. He's done everything he can. I, Fengling, am eternally grateful for this kindness. Although we've never met, never talked, and never had any contact, at this moment, I really want to have a drink with you. I didn't specifically thank you for your tips, but these few posts made my heart burn. Thank you, my brother. In these 2 days, many of my brothers have deeply moved me. Many of them have specially come from pirated books to support me. Some of them have even tipped me before I reached V, just for the monthly votes of the Proud World. I'm touched. The Proud World has never been as popular as it was these few days. But these few days, it's completely boiling. I want to say, with brothers like you, I, Fengling, am worth it. The world of pride belongs to everyone. Just like what a friend said, the proud world has come to this day, and you're just an author. The fate of the proud world is no longer decided by you. Wind dominates the world. The fate of Chu Yang is no longer decided by you. Wind dominates the world. And we have the final say. Yes, I admit that you have the final say. Everyone has the final say. Because this is our shared proud world. Everyone's proud world. Everyone, let's support it together. Right, leave it to me. Proud world, leave it to you. I'll go write the 4th chapter. I'm touched and unknowingly said so much. Please understand. Chapter 953. The day I come out of seclusion is the day I kill my way up to the heavens. Gu Duxing repeated slowly, his aura rising. Martial yin-yang, but now that the heavens are completely sealed, how are we going to kill our way up? Jimo said in distress. As long as Chu Yang is the master of the Calamity Sword, then Chu Yang will definitely open the seal. Mo Tianji's eyes were bright as he said, this is the mission of the master of the Calamity Sword. It is also inevitable after 10,000 years of reincarnation. All the brothers became silent. Although no one said anything, a faint fighting spirit surged out from them. Practice. Practice. Then, each of the brothers found a place and sat down beside the dragon. All of them breathed slowly and quietly. Before long, they had already entered a state where they forgot about everything around them. In the upper 3 heavens, preparations for the medicine banquet were underway. All the pharmacists and experts were gathering towards the south. Some had just set off, some were preparing, and some were already on their way. The upper 3 heavens had already started to slowly boil. The south was still covered in greenery, but in a wasteland extremely far away in the northwest, it was already cold and snowy. In the vast snow, there was someone crying in grief at this moment. It was Dong Wushang. Broken limbs and body parts filled the surroundings. The smell of blood rose to the sky. Dong Wushang knelt weakly on the snowy ground. Beside him, Mo Leia stood shakily. Her face was pale and her eyes were filled with tears. In front of her was Rui Butong's body, lying quietly. There was no sound. Dong Wushang leaned on his long saber, tears falling like rain. He was so choked that he couldn't speak at all. Since the establishment of the 4 3-persons hall, the 3 of them had been constantly taking on missions and fighting. Their battle records and cultivation were also constantly rising. The density of spiritual energy in the upper 3 heavens was completely different from that in the upper 3 heavens. Therefore, the cultivation of the 3 of them improved faster. Dong Wushang and Rui Butong's talents were quickly stimulated under such dense spiritual energy. 3 days ago, Dong Wushang had already rapidly rushed to 8th grade Saber Emperor. Because Rui Butong was an ordinary martial emperor, he was even faster than Dong Wushang and was already a 2nd grade martial emperor. Net 7 by 24 hours uninterrupted update of pure text handwritten novel. When Mo Leia was in the upper 3 heavens, her starting point was slightly lower than Dong Wushang's. However, she was now a middle grade martial emperor. Just the day before yesterday, Dong Wushang had accepted a mission to escort a stalk of spirit herb. The reward was 1,000 purple crystals. Dong Wushang and the other 2 discussed for a while before they set off excitedly. Little did they know that this stalk of medicine was used for the medicine banquet and was extremely rare. Along the way, they had actually encountered wave after wave of interceptions. In the short span of 2 days, the 3 of them had already gone through 7 or 8 assassinations. Every time, it was filled with danger. For the last time, Dong Wushang fought madly, but he couldn't withstand the attacks of several monarch-level experts. He retreated in defeat and was in imminent danger. Mo Leia was also at a disadvantage, and she was trying her best to hold on. Rui Butong was even more clumsy, surrounded by dangers. However, at the most crucial moment, Rui Butong suddenly leaped up. While the 3 martial monarchs struck him with their palms at the same time, he desperately twisted the neck of that martial monarch expert. Then, he leaped up and faced the fatal long sword as he desperately hugged the strongest martial monarch expert opposite Dong Wushang. Dong Wushang stood there in a daze. His mind was still reverberating with Rui Butong's dying roar. We can't all die. You and sister-in-law wait for boss to come up. Don't let them feel lonely and helpless when they come up. Strike. Even cut me into pieces. Kill. Dong Wushang fell to his knees with a thud, his tears gushing out like a fountain. Elder. Butong. Dong Wushang roared at the sky. His voice was hoarse, and blood kept coming out of his throat. He seemed to see Rui Butong roaring at him again, bathed in blood. At the moment when he struck with grief and indignation, a hint of a smile flashed across Rui Butong's eyes. And a few muffled words in his throat, wait for him. You wait. I'm happy, I know. You want me to wait for them. Wait for them to come up and let me fight with them. Dong Wushang roared at the sky. But Boss and Duxing came up. What should I say? What should I say? They asked me, where is Elder? What about Butong? What should I say? You just fucking lay here quietly. It's fine. But what should I do with a rotten stall? Dong Wushang roared with grief and indignation. Bastard. Bastard. As he scolded, hot tears rolled down his cheeks. Such a mighty and heroic man was sobbing uncontrollably at this moment. At the side, Mo Leier was crying silently. Web at the moment when Rui Butong flew out with blood all over his body, Mo Leier was really shocked. This Rui Butong, who was usually glib-tongued and even looked a little wretched, showed such heroism and determination at that moment. It was so shocking, so full of spirit. Men had their own hot blood. Usually, they wouldn't show it, but when the world was turbulent and a man's hot blood gushed out, it was enough to move anyone. At a critical moment, when a man gave his all, it was enough to make everyone's heart surge. She clearly remembered that in the battle just now, Rui Butong had been paying attention to Dong Wushang's battle and her side from the corner of his eyes. And Dong Wushang's heavy gaze had also been paying attention to Rui Butong and her. These two men, at this moment, didn't say anything, but with their most sincere attitudes and actions, they told her what men were. So this was how a man's friendship was. Rui Butong was ready to sacrifice himself for his brother at any time, and Dong Wushang's gaze was the same. Both of them were ready to do that at any time. But just before Dong Wushang made his move, Rui Butong made his move in advance. When he made his move, the situation was just a hair's breadth away, not a moment of life and death. But Rui Butong couldn't wait any longer. He knew that when that moment came, he definitely wouldn't be as fast as Dong Wushang. This battle was very intense but also very short. The lineup of the three sides was very balanced. The opponents were individually in a kind of joint attack formation. The three battlefields intersected and cooperated with each other. Only the three monarch-level experts were the strongest and could support each other at any time. As long as he could catch one of them off guard, then Dong Wushang would be able to break out of the encirclement immediately and kill the rest with ease. But if Dong Wushang sacrificed himself, he wouldn't be able to kill all of them at the same time. So if anyone were to die, it would be him. So Rui Butong made his move in advance. He couldn't let Dong Wushang make his move first. Sure enough, Rui Butong's sacrifice was to risk his own life to kill one of them and break the formation. Then, he used his own life to hold on to another one. And to reduce most of the obstacles for Dong Wushang, Dong Wushang instantly broke free like a flood dragon. Carrying intense grief and indignation, his dark saber instantly transformed into a wild dragon that could overturn rivers and seas. He didn't hesitate to self-destruct, and used the fastest speed to kill everyone. Then, he immediately arrived beside Rui Butong, but at that time, Rui Butong was already unable to speak. He was only panting weakly. With a clear smile in his eyes, with peace and ease, he looked deeply at Dong Wushang, as if he wanted to engrave his brother in his mind forever. Then, he smiled and his lips moved. Dong Wushang thought he was going to speak and moved closer to listen. But he was no longer breathing. He was so calm that it was as if he had fallen asleep. Wushang, don't be sad. If Butong knew in the underworld, he wouldn't want. Mo Leier's tears fell like rain as she tried to persuade Dong Wushang. Dong Wushang shuddered and suddenly burst into tears. My brother doesn't want me to be sad, but this is my brother. But this is my brother. But this is my brother. He even smiled at me just now. He even smiled just now. How can he die? Dong Wushang pushed Mo Lei to one side in a rage. He lost his mind and yelled, "How can my brother die? I still want to be with him and wait for my brothers to come up. Together, we can laugh proudly in the martial world. Together, we can dance in the clouds and look down on the world. Carve our names in the heavenly imperial court. Rui Butong, you promised. You promised us. You can't go back on your words. You can't go back on your words." Dong Wushang shook Rui Butong's body madly and yelled crazily. There was still a calm smile on Rui Butong's face. He swayed weakly as Dong Wushang shook him. Snowflakes landed on his face and actually stuck to it silently, no longer melting. "Ah!" Dong Wushang yelled at the sky. He spat out a mouthful of blood and let go of his hands weakly. Rui Butong's body fell weakly onto the snowy ground. And Dong Wushang's tall and sturdy body also fell stiffly to the ground like a golden mountain toppling over a jade pillar. Mo Lei burst into tears. She first supported Rui Butong's body and then went to help Dong Wushang. But it was already too late. With a loud crash, Dong Wushang fell solidly onto the snowy ground. The vast snowy plains seemed to shake violently because of his burly body falling onto the ground. Mo Lei's tears fell like rain. She couldn't help Dong Wushang first. She knew that if she didn't care about Rui Butong's body and helped Dong Wushang, the first thing Dong Wushang would do when he woke up would be to be separated from her forever. No one knew better than her how much this man valued his brothers. A day passed. Ever since Dong Wushang woke up, he sat motionlessly in front of Rui Butong's body and muttered something. He still couldn't accept that his brother was already dead. He forced all the medicine into Rui Butong's body. Including the few incomplete heavy pills that Chu Yang gave him, there were still 3 left. They were all stuffed into Rui Butong's mouth. This is Boss's miracle medicine. It can cure all injuries. Dong Wushang said hopefully, "Wake up quickly. Wake up quickly." Mo Lei shed tears secretly. She was about to persuade him when she suddenly heard Dong Wushang's exclamation of joy. She hurriedly turned around in shock and saw that the ice and snow where Rui Butong was lying was actually starting to melt and turn into water. Moreover, waves of heat were rising. Dong Wushang jumped out and pointed from afar. He laughed loudly and shouted, "Look, he's not dead. I'm not beside him. His body is heating up." Then, he jumped back and said with a trembling voice, my brother is alive." Mo Lei's eyes widened. This matter was too strange. He had already been dead for a day and a night and his body was already stiff. Being able to come back from the dead was really unheard of. Under the gaze of the two of them, Rui Butong's body temperature on the ground became higher and higher. Slowly, it actually started to turn red. Finally, with a whoosh, a ball of fire suddenly appeared on his body. The fire kept coming out and in an instant, it was already a huge fire that soared into the sky. Phoenix Nirvana? Mo Lei's mind flashed and she suddenly blurted out. Then, she was so shocked by her own words that she covered her mouth. Tomorrow is the last day of this month, the last day of this month. The single chapter will be published later. G. Chapter 954. Rui Butong's body, which was lying flat, suddenly burst into flames. At first, one could still see the outline of his body in the flames, but after an instant, the flames suddenly rose and became white, completely enveloping Rui Butong's body. Dong Wushang was too close. With a whoosh, a piece of hair on his forehead was burned off. He hurriedly retreated to avoid it. Net 7 by 24 hours non-stop update pure text handwritten novel. The next moment, Mo Lei exclaimed, "Be careful." She flew over and dragged Dong Wushang down to the ground. She slid out on the snowy ground for 100 feet. Then, she got up and pulled Dong Wushang to run. After running for 300 feet, when she turned back, she saw that the place where Rui Butong was at was already covered in flames. A red light shot up into the sky. The flames had already turned red. Completely red. The burning heaven and earth were covered in blood red. At this moment, all the clouds in the sky were dyed with a layer of dazzling light. Such a fire, not to mention burning a person's body. Even if the whole world was burned together, it definitely wouldn't have such power. Dong Wushang stared blankly. What's going on? Mo Lei stared at the red light without blinking and said, Nirvana flame. Dong Wushang immediately understood. Suddenly, his eyes widened. You mean? Butong, he's actually a phoenix. Mo Lei frowned. How can you say that? It might be true that he has the awakened phoenix bloodline in his body. As for him being a phoenix, is there such a wretched phoenix in this world? But, no matter what, he won't die. You can rest assured. Dong Wushang rubbed his hands and said excitedly, that's great. Whether he's a phoenix or a pig, he won't die at last. When he wakes up, I'll beat this bastard to death. Fuck. I was scared to death. The flames burned fiercely and shot up into the sky. This fire burned for 3 days straight. However, except for the ice and snow on the ground that melted a little when it started to heat up, after 3 days of burning, the rest of the ice and snow actually didn't melt at all. A wave of rugged divine power surged out. Martial yin-yang, this fire had alarmed too many people. Countless experts saw the anomaly and wanted to come over to take a look. However, he discovered that he couldn't enter at all. As long as he was within a radius of 100 miles, he would not be able to take another step forward. No matter what your cultivation is, you can't even take a step closer. Only Dong Wushang and Mo Lei, who were only 300 feet away, only felt warm and comfortable. Within a radius of 100 li, there were already quite a number of people gathering. Slowly, more and more people gathered. There was definitely a great change in the world. If it wasn't the Tribulation Swordmaster, then it was definitely a treasure that had been unearthed. This was the common understanding of everyone. Everyone was waiting for this terrifying pressure to pass, then they would all rush forward. As the host, the Li clan had gathered even more people. Everyone was nervous. This time, would it be an opportunity? Then, in the next moment, everyone stared at the sky in shock. The clouds in the sky moved, surging like a tsunami. Then, the place where the red light was suddenly turned into a huge whirlpool, stirring slowly in the center of the entire sky. As he stirred, all of the heaven and earth spiritual chi in the surroundings began to gather at a faster and faster speed. Suddenly, with a shio sound, all of the spiritual chi within a radius of 1,000 miles disappeared without a trace. At this moment, even those people at the periphery suddenly felt suffocated. In the next moment, the wind rose and the clouds surged in the horizon. Countless amounts of pure spiritual energy crazily rushed over with a speed as fast as lightning. The spiritual energy instantly filled up the empty space in the sky. Then, it was absorbed again in an instant. Once again, it rushed over from all directions. Rushed over. The red light became brighter and brighter, stronger and stronger. The whole sky formed a whole patch of burning clouds. At the moment when the spiritual energy suddenly surged over, a red light shot out from Rui Butong's body, enveloping Dong Wushang and Mo Lei as well. Then, the two of them simultaneously felt that all the pores on their bodies suddenly opened at the same time. Countless spiritual energy rushed into their bodies from every pore. At the same time, there was a numb and itchy feeling in their dantian, as if the sea of energy in their dantian was gradually expanding under a mysterious force. The meridians in their bodies were also expanding rapidly. Gradually, the inner energy in their bodies surged wildly. The two of them were shocked. They hurriedly sat down cross-legged and meditated. They only felt that their cultivation was increasing rapidly. On the 5th day, martial yin-yang, a clear phoenix cry suddenly resounded through the sky. With a boom, the spiritual energy exploded and rushed up. The fiery red spiritual energy let out another clear phoenix cry in midair. A huge phoenix suddenly took shape in the sky. The fiery red wings seemed to be slowly spreading out, but they had not spread out yet. A red light suddenly exploded in the endless sky, turning into countless small red dots, scattering in the air in all directions of the continent. The spiritual energy in the world seemed to have gone crazy, rushing towards this newly formed phoenix. It seemed to be using a huge amount of spiritual energy to grow the phoenix's wings. It's a phoenix. A supreme martial artist leading the Li clan shouted in shock, "Quick! Quickly report to the elder master. In the northeast direction. A person with a sun mark on his forehead was standing with his hands behind his back, looking at the northwest sky. Suddenly, he frowned and shouted, "The phoenix has been born." Beside him, many people exclaimed, "What?" This person frowned and muttered, "The phoenix has been born, but why hasn't the golden dragon appeared yet?" Beside him, countless people were looking up at the red in the sky. Their gazes were complicated, and there was actually an indescribable feeling of trembling. Everyone was trembling slightly as they watched and waited. The dragon soars into the sky, the phoenix spreads its wings, the Saint King is born, and the world cries. That person stared at the red in the sky and suddenly said in a low voice, "King, where are you now?" At the same time, all the birds in the world suddenly went crazy. Countless birds soared into the sky and circled around without hesitation. Then, they flapped their wings and rushed toward the northwest direction. Often, when a bird flew out, it would be alone. But after flying out for a few li, it would have turned into a huge group of colorful birds. Slowly, they would form a majestic army. Using all of their strength, they would increase their speed and head northwest at the fastest speed possible, flying rapidly. Among these pairs of birds, there were even quite a few that were natural enemies. But now, they all flew together harmoniously and lined up neatly, from big to small, from weak to strong. They didn't even look at each other, not to mention killing each other. The phoenix's wings finally opened slowly and moved slowly. Suddenly, a scorching whirlwind blew between heaven and earth. The spiritual energy was rapid and dense. The glacier within a radius of 100 miles started to melt. Only the one in the middle didn't melt. The glacier in the periphery were still melting. The people in the periphery retreated step by step. In the end, they started to run. However, the speed of the glacier melting became faster and faster. When they finally stopped, there was already a vast ocean in front of them. Countless birds nearby had already started to fly over and dance in the sky above the ocean. Each of them displayed their most beautiful dance moves, as if celebrating. The entire heavenly layer shook. At this moment, suddenly, a loud and clear dragon's roar resounded through heaven and earth. In the sky, there was a loud boom of thunder. The entire earth was trembling rapidly. Countless people and animals were stunned by this thunderous roar. In the distant sky, a golden light seemed to rise from the ground and rushed into the sky. In the blink of an eye, the sky was golden. The image of a huge golden dragon floated in the air. Suddenly, it raised its head and let out a loud and clear dragon's roar. Then, it suddenly disappeared. In the northeast direction, in a distant place, everyone knelt down at the same time, their eyes brimming with tears. The dragon soars into the sky, the phoenix spreads its wings. When the Holy King appears, heaven and earth cry. Too many people murmured together, "King." Finally, today, the dragon and the phoenix appear together. "King, where are you?" 3 days, in the glacier of the extreme south. Tan, who was cultivating, suddenly raised his head and looked at the sky. The sky was golden and fiery red. Tan's eyes lit up, and he murmured, "Has it started?" Then, a dense black aura suddenly emerged from his body. In an instant, his entire body was shrouded in black gas, in the far north wastelands. In the secret land of the elves, Dooku extended his body and rushed out of the cave at the fastest speed. In a flash, he was already standing on the highest peak, looking up. His expression was excited, and his body was trembling a little. "It has finally started." Dooku chuckled and took out an exquisite green box from his chest. He opened it carefully and looked inside. Inside, there was something that looked like a seed covered in a green halo. Dooku pinched it with 2 fingers and looked at it with a complicated expression. He let out a long sigh and slowly put this seed into his mouth. Then, he disappeared in a flash. In all directions of the continent, all the experts were looking at the northwest at this moment. They were looking at the sky. Even those who had been in seclusion for thousands of years came out one after another. They stood at the highest point of the place and looked at the sky. At the top of the law enforcement city's clock tower, a man in white stood in the wind and looked at the sky in the distance silently. Over there, the red light was dazzling. The phoenix has come out. The man in white murmured. At this moment, his eyes were as sharp as a knife. In a moment, a golden color appeared in the clouds. The dragon clan has come out. The man in white's face became serious. After a while, a green light rushed into the sky and stood together with the red and yellow lights. It seemed that a hodgepodge had suddenly appeared in the sky. The elf clan. The man in white sighed and murmured, "Are all the clans going to be revived?" Immediately after, a dense black light suddenly appeared in the sky with the attitude of a ruler descending upon the world. It appeared in the middle of the green, red, and yellow lights. It swayed and churned, majestic and mighty. The white-robed man's face, which had been calm all this time, suddenly revealed an intense shock. In fact, there was even a faint sense of fear. Today's first update. I forgot that today is the Lantern Festival. Dad called me, so I hurried home and kowtowed in front of the ancestral tablets. Then, I came back without stopping. I will continue to write the second update. There are less than 7 hours left. The bayonet has already seen red. After working hard for a month, it will be fixed. We are still lagging behind. I am still fighting. I will never give up. Chapter 955. This is demonic aura. It's holy aura again. The man in white narrowed his eyes and frowned. Which clan is this? Which clan? Could it be? Could it be? Deep worry appeared on the man in white's face. Heaven and earth cry. Heaven and earth cry. Is there really going to be chaos in the world? A clear sound rang out like the music of heavenly beings. That huge phoenix's wings were finally fully spread out. In an instant, green light intertwined and rose tens of thousands of feet. Golden light flashed across thousands of miles. Only a cloud of black aura remained unmoving. Too many birds from all directions also flew into the sky above the ocean. They danced on this ocean that had never appeared in the northwest region. At the moment when the phoenix spread its wings, it also stopped in the sky. The phoenix spread its wings and rushed up with a resounding phoenix cry. It pierced through the cloud. At the moment when the phoenix soared into the sky, all the birds fell silent. They quietly and respectfully prostrated and lowered their proud heads. He wanted to show his incomparable respect to his king. The phoenix soared into the sky and turned into a colorful cloud in the sky. Then, the colorful cloud dissipated and turned into a rosy glow. Finally, it disappeared. The golden dragon let out a long cry and also disappeared without a trace in an instant. The green light flickered for a moment before disappearing. Only that thick black aura was still surging in the sky. Then, the black aura suddenly surged and slowly turned into a blurry human figure. His face couldn't be seen clearly. He just stood in the void, with the sky above his head and the mountains below his feet. This figure slowly turned around and faced the northeast. He seemed to be looking, as if he was deep in thought, as if he was. Then, this black aura slowly dissipated and turned into a sky full of dark clouds. Dark clouds covered the sky. A shocking thunderbolt sounded and a shining silver snake came from the sky to the ground. The torrential rain covered the entire heavenly layer as it poured down. In the northeast, when the figure turned around, everyone knelt down neatly on the ground, trembling and crying tears of joy. Millions of people shouted at the same time, "King, King, King! My king is back!" Their voices shook the world. Heavy rain poured down. The place where Dong Wushang, Mo Lei and Rui Butong were at was already an isolated island. In fact, they were floating on the surface of the water. Countless icebergs were drifting back and forth, making the small island they were on look like a grain of sand in the middle of the ocean. It was so inconspicuous. The experts in the periphery had already begun to cut wood and build boats. Who knew that there would be a day where they would need to use boats in the northwest? Other than icebergs, there was a snowfield. Tall mountains stood in great numbers, and steep ridges crisscrossed the area. It had always been difficult for carriages to travel, so ordinary people usually used sleds. Who would have thought that one day, he would actually take a boat? Why would he need a boat? How would these people know how the ship was made? He busied himself for half a day but still couldn't get it up. Then, He saw that someone had already gone into the water. Everyone looked over and saw that those guys were spinning on the surface of the water like a top, unable to move an inch forward. He couldn't help but burst into laughter. These people had shaved off one side of the big tree, removed all the branches, and dug a hole in the trunk of the big tree. The three of them sat on it, one in the middle and two at the two ends, each holding a branch and paddling. But after a while, relying on their high cultivation, they actually only spun on the surface of the water for more than 100 rounds before adjusting their direction and rushing out. They actually swayed in the wind and waves, twisting and turning like penguins as they floated out. Fuck. This was really a good idea. Just now, everyone was still laughing at them when they saw them spinning in circles. But now, it seemed that they really had foresight. In such a godforsaken place, how could there be any boats? So everyone followed suit. Almost in an instant, all the big trees at the side were chopped down. There were even people who started fighting over a big tree, and the fight was in full swing. The people on the surface of the water were all spinning in circles, and it was extremely crowded. Sometimes, with a bang, two tree boats would collide with each other as they spun, and people on both sides would fall into the water at the same time. Then, the people at the side would either intentionally or unintentionally use the oars made of tree branches to hit them on the head. What a joke! A phoenix would never land on a land without treasures. What's more, this was the birth of a phoenix. There would definitely be countless treasures. With such a good opportunity, how could they not take advantage of it and eliminate their competitors in advance? How could they leave it to harm themselves in the future? So, the sounds of beating and scolding rang out continuously. There was a commotion, and a few more tree boats rushed out, swaying and drifting far away. Then, more and more people went out. The most tragic ones were the few supreme martial artists who wanted to rely on their high cultivation to cross the water. They flew up elegantly, floating in a kind of elegant posture, and were about to rush out fiercely. But just as they flew up, a huge pressure came down on them. The few supreme martial artists instantly lost all their strength and fell down like dumplings, landing on their backs in a sorry state. The most impressive thing was that one of the supreme martial artists actually fell to the ground and had a nosebleed. This was really too embarrassing. One must know that this was the legend of the heavens. A supreme martial artist. Although he was only a first-grade supreme martial artist, he was still a legendary figure. Not to mention falling, even if a big hammer smashed his nose, it would only make a hole in his nose. Now, he actually fell from a place that wasn't very high, and even his nose was bleeding. Heavy rain poured down, and the supreme martial artist's blood flowed down. He reached out to touch his face, and his face was covered in blood. Everyone wanted to laugh, but no one dared to. The few supreme martial artists climbed up with dusty faces, only to find that after landing, their cultivation had returned. They couldn't help but look at each other. It seemed that they could only row the boats on the ice island. Dong Wushang and Mo Leiya felt that they could move again and jumped up. Dong Wushang didn't care about how much his cultivation had increased. He went to Rui Butong's side in one step and looked at him worriedly. He saw that Rui Butong's face was rosy, lying there, his chest rising and falling slowly. He was indeed fine. Such a fierce fire burned the sky red, but Rui Butong's clothes didn't burn at all. Dong Wushang was still in disbelief. He reached out a trembling hand to feel Rui Butong's breath. At this moment, Rui Butong, who was lying on the ground, actually opened his eyes. Dong Wushang actually got a shock. Rui Butong opened his eyes, closed them, and then opened them again. He blinked and his pupils gradually focused. He actually gave a vulgar smile and his first sentence was actually, "Old Fourth, you're scared out of your wits, aren't you?" Dong Wushang stood there in a daze, unable to react for a long time. He blinked and suddenly, tears fell crazily. Then, without any hesitation, he punched Rui Butong's left eye hard. Poof! A panda eye was born immediately. Rui Butong was in great pain. "Fuck you." Before he finished speaking, Dong Wushang's second punch had already come over mercilessly. Poof! Rui Butong completely transformed into a panda. Dong Wushang's punches were powerful and heavy. Without saying a word, he gritted his teeth and puffed up his cheeks as he punched again and again. Rui Butong was finally enraged. He flipped over and got up. The two of them took turns punching each other. Not long after, two brand new pig heads were born. He lay on the ice, panting heavily. Until now, no one spoke. After a long time, Rui Butong moaned. "Does it feel good?" Dong Wushang panted. "Yes. I feel very good too," Rui Butong said. The two of them stopped talking and just panted. After a while, they suddenly burst into laughter in unison. Those who had died once didn't have the surprise of coming back from the dead. Those who had been crying in regret also didn't say anything about their brothers coming back from the dead. Everything was as usual. It was as if this incident had never happened before. Mo Lei watched from the side. She had always felt that she was a genius and could understand everything. Moreover, she could also feel and understand friendship. But at this moment, she felt that she understood men less and less. The friendship between men was indeed very strange. Something happened to Rui Butong, and Dong Wushang was devastated. This was very easy to understand. But Rui Butong came back from the dead, yet Dong Wushang didn't seem very moved. Mo Lei felt that if it were a woman, they would probably be hugging each other and crying right now. But these two men actually fought fiercely without protecting each other. After beating each other into a pig's head, everything would be over. After the laughter, Rui Butong said in a low voice, "Actually, I don't know about this either." Dong Wushang lay on the ground, stroking the wounds on his face contentedly, the corners of his mouth twitching in pain. "I understand." "Okay." Rui Butong didn't say anything either. Both of them were checking their own cultivation. Such an important matter, and they didn't mention it again. "I've improved," Rui Butong said. "I'm afraid I've already reached the first or second stage of the saint level." "Me too. It's about the same. But I still need to practice the saber and increase my understanding of the way of the saber before I can reach the level of a saber saint. This will still take a long time," Dong Wushang said lightly. "I've improved too." Mo Lei checked herself in surprise. "Huh?" Dong Wushang and Rui Butong looked at her in shock. "You gave birth too? Where? Is it a boy or a girl?" Mo Lei reacted instantly. Embarrassed and angry, she put her hands on her waist. "You two bastards." Rui Butong laughed loudly. "You didn't give birth to us two bastards. It's not nice of you to say that. It doesn't matter to me. If you gave birth to me, then so be it. I can call you mother now, but not Fourth. If Fourth calls you mother, you won't be able to get married." Mo Lei's face and ears turned red. She went forward to beat this guy up. But Rui Butong actually leaned forward. "Mother, I'm hungry. I want to drink milk." Before he finished, he was beaten half to death by Dong Wushang and Mo Lei. He lay on the ice and couldn't do anything other than moan. The three of them looked at each other and laughed. Mo Lei had also advanced to the saint level. The three of them were of the same level. This proved one thing. In the Nirvana flame just now, Rui Butong had shared all the benefits that should have been his alone with Dong Wushang and Mo Lei. He could have gone all the way to the supreme level. Because he had the phoenix physique, all the benefits were tailor-made for him. Not only would it be a waste for Dong Wushang and Mo Lei, it wouldn't achieve the best results. But he still did it. When Rui Butong came back from the dead, he only said, "I don't know either." And that was it. Dong Wushang didn't ask either. He used the Nirvana flame to share all the benefits equally with Dong Wushang and Mo Lei. This kind of friendship was enough to move heaven and earth. But Dong Wushang didn't say it either. Not only did he not say it, but he also didn't allow Mo Lei to say it either. This matter, if it was said, would be lighter. If this kind of sacrifice was said verbally, it would really be an insult to feelings. Today's writing was especially slow. Haha, you should also understand how I feel. My 3 years of hard work will come to an end tonight. Treat it as a gift for myself next month, and also a gift for Pride's anniversary. As for why I'm giving it to myself, let's talk about it after the monthly votes battle. Today, everyone is persuading me to write 10 chapters. I also want to write 10 chapters. I know better than anyone that if I write 10 chapters today, It will be an assured victory. But I really can't do it anymore. This month, I've almost broken myself. Even if I die, I can't write anymore. How about this? I'll still write 10 chapters today. No matter who comes in first or second, this is a promise. I'll write double the chapters next month. My heart is beating like a drum now, I'm sweating all over, and even my fingers are trembling. I don't know if I can write the third and fourth chapters. If there are 3 chapters, I'll owe 7 chapters. I'll write 14 chapters next month. If there are 4 chapters, I'll owe 12 chapters. If there are only 2 chapters, I'll write 10 chapters next month. Victory or defeat depends on this battle. A victory is a victory, a defeat is a defeat. If I win, I have to win fair and square. If I lose, I have to lose in a soul-stirring manner. No matter if I win or lose, I can take it. Maybe I'll cry if I win, but if I lose, I can still laugh. Because I'm the one who rules the world. I'll fight with all my might. Chapter 956. Noises could be heard from afar. The 3 of them looked back and saw huge trees riding the wind and waves toward them. It had to be said that these martial arts experts were really good at understanding things. Otherwise, they wouldn't have become experts. Now, they were riding the hollow tree trunks without sails and were actually in high spirits. They were like huge sea cucumbers but could move forward at the speed of a barracuda. But upon closer look, they knew that these people weren't rowing boats at all. They were obviously riding the boat in the way of a sled. Rui Butong, Dong Wushang, and Mo Lei were all dumbfounded. The 3 of them thought that they were experienced and knowledgeable, but this was the first time they had seen such a strange scene. The wisdom of the people is endless. Dong Wushang murmured. I've proven this sentence once again. Rui Butong said, yes, look at them. How lively. They're really like a group of children playing with water. Mo Lei trembled. Indeed, these martial arts experts, who were mostly white-haired and bearded, had all kinds of strange postures when they rowed the boat. The shape of the boat could also be said to be colorful. Especially on one boat, the 2 people were actually leaning to the left. At the same time, they rowed to the left and the tree boat tilted to the left. Then, the 2 of them hurriedly rowed to the right and the tree boat tilted to the right again. The surrounding tree boats all stayed far away from the 2 of them, fearing that they would bump into them. However, these 2 experts had actually used such a method to barge their way through. They were like giant crabs, and they had actually reached the depths of the ocean. What a freaking weirdo. Rui Butong murmured to himself. Phoenixes don't land on places without treasures. The birth of phoenixes must be full of treasures. These people are here to look for treasures or little phoenixes. Mo Lei looked at Rui Butong with some worry. Rui Butong shrugged and said indifferently, the phoenixes have already left. They're looking for the phoenixes, not me. What does that have to do with anything? Besides, do I look like a phoenix to you? Have you seen a phoenix as handsome as me? Dong Wushang couldn't help bursting into laughter. Tan Tan is much more handsome than you. Rui Bu Tong tightly knitted his brows. He then angrily said, you're comparing Tan Tan's appearance with mine. You're raping my personality. You're profaning my temperament. How dare you taint my demeanor, molesting my purity. You're defiling me to death. Dong Wushang burst into laughter. What should we do next? Rui Butong said, 4th brother, you haven't heard of this before. This medicine is requested by the Song clan, a subordinate clan of the Li clan, so that the pharmacists can participate in the medicine banquet. What is this medicine banquet? Dong Wushang blinked. You're also very interested. I'm doing this for your sake, 4th brother. You want to hone your saber. What's the point of honing your saber in such a remote place? Rui Butong snickered. Let's go to the medicine banquet. I heard that the heroes of the world will gather there. Martial emperors are like ants, martial monarchs are like sand, martial saints are like dogs, and supreme martial artists are like mountains. He patted Dong Wushang's shoulder and said, 4th brother, once we beat everyone there, we'll be invincible. Dong Wushang's eyes suddenly shone brightly. He murmured, once we beat everyone there, we'll be invincible. Mo Leiya was so nervous that her face turned pale. She knew that Rui Butong might be joking, but Dong Wushang's murmuring was definitely not a joke. It was definitely not a joke. He really wanted to beat everyone there to the ground. But before he could do that, Dong Wushang himself didn't know how many times he would have to go down and how many times he would have to die. She was just about to stop him when she heard Dong Wushang laugh heartily. He said, "Since that's the case, after we hand in the mission this time, we'll directly get another mission to go to the medicine banquet. Let's beat them all down." Rui Butong burst into laughter. "And me. Both of you are crazy," Mo Leiya muttered and cursed anxiously. But not only was she influenced by the fighting spirit of the two brothers, her eyes also shone brightly. How could the young black devil be willing to be ordinary? In the past, because of the limitation of her abilities and because of her unstable relationship with Dong Wushang, Mo Leiya had always been blocked by Dong Wushang and Rui Butong. She was willing to be a little woman behind her man's back and take charge of all the trivial matters. But now that her man had such lofty ambitions, how could she, his woman, just watch him do nothing? If you want to be a hero of Lingtian, then of course I also want to be a matchless beauty. Only then can I be worthy of you. When I'm by your side, I want you to be proud of me. In a thatched hut in the middle of a forest. A man dressed like a scholar was in front of the hut, drinking tea leisurely and contentedly. His expression was very indifferent, as if he didn't care about anything. His whole person exuded a natural and unrestrained aura. Once one saw him, they would immediately feel that the sky was high and the clouds were light, as if everything was drifting away like a breeze. After drinking a cup of tea, he stood up slowly. After taking 2 steps, he muttered, "Medicine banquet, should I go or not?" Casually catching a piece of red that drifted over, he smiled warmly. "Of course you should go. Because Chu Chen is going, and so are the people from the Yi clan." He smiled and floated up like a cloud. He floated down the mountain like this, not looking back. Before he made a decision, he would pass his days here peacefully. But once he made a decision, he would set off immediately without any hesitation. He would follow his heart and do whatever he wanted. This was for transcendence. When the sky changed, Chu Yang was still 500 miles away from the headquarters of the Zhuge clan. It was noon. Chu Yang and Ling Hanwu were talking. Chu Le was sleeping soundly on Zi Xieching's body. Zi Xieching and Ling Hanxue, this pair of ice beauties, were also talking in their unique way. Suddenly, they felt the spiritual energy of heaven and earth go berserk. The few of them were shocked. When they went out together and stood at the highest point, they realized that there were already many people looking up. Everyone was speechless when they saw the various strange scenes that appeared in the sky. When they came up, they didn't know that this strange phenomenon would actually last for such a long time. They actually stood there for a few days. Until the end, no one spoke. When the yellow, green, red and black aura dissipated, and the heavy rain poured down, everyone was completely drenched. Only then did they return to their rooms somewhat absent-mindedly. Chu Yang frowned along the way. Others had already entered their rooms, but he was still strolling alone in the rain. This strange phenomenon was definitely not the sword of calamity. And he hadn't seen it before. But why did those few auras feel so intimate and familiar to him? That beam of black light definitely had an aura of evil, but strangely, it also had an aura of righteousness. The evil aura was filled with complicated familiarity and intimacy. At that moment, Chu Yang even thought of his own junior brother Tan Tan. It was so complicated. They should have the same personality, but they were so opposite to each other, each walking on 2 extremes. Wasn't it just like Tan Tan? In everyone's eyes, he was extremely ugly, but he himself was extremely narcissistic. You clearly value your relationship to the point of death, but you force yourself to act as if you don't care. You clearly use extremely evil means, but you do righteous things. Yet, you use a kind of honorable means to achieve your wretched goals, damn it. Chu Yang shook his head and smiled bitterly. As he shook his head, the rainwater scattered from his face into the curtain of rain. And that mysterious green light also felt familiar to Chu Yang. Even that pressure that appeared at that time reminded Chu Yang of the atmosphere he felt when he was in Jukyu's secret place of the elves, Chu Yang felt even more familiar with the red light. The moment the red light rushed up, it reminded Chu Yang of Rui Butong's aura when he broke through in the far north wastelands and was reborn. And the phoenix that soared up afterwards made Chu Yang even more certain this red light was most likely related to Rui Butong. Because Rui Butong was now in the upper three heavens. As for the image of the golden dragon, Chu Yang thought of Ao Xieyun. He knew that Ao Xieyun had the bloodline of the dragon race. Could it be related? But then Chu Yang smiled bitterly and thought, if the heaven and earth phenomena that appeared at the same time were all related to his brother, then wouldn't it be a little too wishful thinking? Inside, the people of the Ling clan were already in a heated discussion. Chu Yang stood alone in the rain, deep in thought. The only one who noticed him was Zi Xiecheng. Even Ling Hanwu was also excitedly participating in the discussion. After all, every time such a situation happened, it meant that the world was about to change. I dare to bet that the Tribulation Swordmaster has definitely found the fifth fragment of the Tribulation Sword. A martial saint expert of the Ling clan said confidently, if it can be proven otherwise, I will strip naked and go out for a run. Everyone despised him. Prove. Do you know who the Tribulation Swordmaster is? Chu Yang stood in the rain and looked at the Ling clan's discussion. At this moment, he actually felt that this lively atmosphere was very far away from him. It was so far away that it was like a dream, and he was living in another dream. I really don't want to think of all of you, Chu Yang murmured, thinking of all of you, I miss all of you too much. What did you think of? Zi Xiecheng's voice sounded beside him. Chu Yang looked over and saw that Zi Xiecheng was already standing in the rain in front of him. The rain poured down from the sky. Zi Xiecheng stood in the rain, and the raindrops seemed to be hitting her body. But only when one was closer would one know that these raindrops didn't hit her body at all. There was not a speck of dust on her body, and she was not wet at all. I thought of something. Chu Yang woke up from his daze and said, Le is asleep. Yes. I'll let her have a good sleep. Zi Xiecheng said lightly, this kind of heavy rain, in a sense, is a cleansing by the heavens. Therefore, sleeping at this time is the best for one's spirit. Chu Yang nodded lightly. He thought that Zi Xiecheng was a 10,000-year-old monster and had seen a lot. She might be able to tell the reason for the strange scene. He couldn't help but ask, what about you? What did you think of? It was a little late. After being tortured by the angels in white for half the morning and afternoon, he only returned from the hospital after 5 o'clock. Of course, there were some problems, but it was definitely nothing serious. After this chapter is posted, the next chapter will be very late. I want to write a thank you letter for August and post it on the related page. That's free. Brothers, you can all come and take a look. No matter if you're the original author or someone from Tiebar, come and take a look. You can also help me increase some clicks. Who knows, your name might be in it. Of course, you can also transfer it away. Yes, I'll say one more thing, asking for guaranteed monthly votes. Of course, the most important thing is that I ask those who like Pride but haven't subscribed to it, please go to the net and increase the number of subscriptions for Pride. One chapter is just a few cents. I'll stretch out my hand and ask for this few cents from everyone. Think about it, brother, you can buy Piercing Winds all-night writing for a few cents. Isn't it worth it? Haha. Actually, my main purpose is to increase the number of subscriptions. Because we, Pride, still want to fight. Because although we, Pride, have no regrets and have a clear conscience, we are still shaken. As long as everyone's subscriptions give me confidence, then, in the near future, we, Pride, will reach the top in one go. Do you want to leave your name in Pride's most glorious moment? Do you want to be a brother of Pride with me? Come, there are more than 1,000 brothers waiting for you here. Pride's unity, Pride's waiting, do you see it? Are you willing to integrate into such a harmonious environment? Chapter 957. Zi Xiecheng smiled and said, you don't know? Chu Yang took a breath and said, I'm not sure. Zi Xiecheng said lightly, actually, you've already confirmed it, but you still need me to say it together. She looked up at Chu Yang. Actually, it's really not necessary. You've already confirmed it. Chu Yang looked up. The rain from the sky splashed on his face. He said softly, I miss it so much. Zi Sheqing nodded lightly and didn't ask anything. She just changed the topic and asked, Chu Yang, in your heart, is the woman you love more important? Or is your brother more important? Chu Yang was stunned. How should I evaluate this? Zi Sheqing said lightly, if there's a battle where the woman you love and your brother face certain death at the same time, and you can only save one, which one will you save? Chu Yang said without hesitation, I'll save whichever I see first. What if I see them at the same time? Zi Sheqing pursued. I'll save whoever is closest to me. Chu Yang felt that it was ridiculous. Is there a need to ask such a question? What if I give you time to choose? Zi Sheqing asked, let you weigh the pros and cons in your heart. Chu Yang frowned. This is purely unreasonable. If I have time to weigh the pros and cons, I'll definitely have time to save both of them. What's the point of weighing the pros and cons? What if there's only one choice? Zi Sheqing asked. To hell with the choice. Chu Yang said rudely, there's no choice. There's no choice. I say, what are you women thinking in your heads? Aren't you tired of thinking about such boring questions every day? Some women ask men every day, between me and your mother, who will you save? It's so boring. Chu Yang said angrily. Zi Sheqing said lightly, actually, women like to ask such questions to prove their position in men's hearts. Chu Yang laughed mischievously, forcing a man to make a choice, fuck. Women who force men to make choices should all get lost. This question should be answered like this. You wait patiently until you have a son. When your son's wife asks him this question, then you'll hear the standard answer. Zi Sheqing smiled. Then, are you sure now? Zi Sheqing asked softly. Chu Yang was startled for a moment before he burst into laughter. There were some things in his heart that he was certain of, but he was still half convinced. At this time, he needed the affirmation of others. The affirmation of others could turn your 50% confidence into 10% confidence. However, even if other people's affirmation is correct, you are still influenced by others. You didn't defeat yourself alone. Instead, she was defeated by someone else. Therefore, you only need to say to yourself, my affirmation is your decision. That would do. This was also an inner demon. Moreover, it was an inner demon that everyone had. Regardless of whether they were ordinary people or supreme being experts. Is your father more important or your mother more important? Is your wife more important or your child more important? Is your brother more important or your wife more important? There would never be an answer. If he forced himself to make a choice, it would really cause him to collapse. No one was willing to make such a choice. Zi Sheqing had forced Chu Yang into a dead end with a choice that could not satisfy both sides. Then, at the crucial moment, she had broken through. His words had defeated Chu Yang's inner demons. Chu Yang laughed self-deprecatingly and said, it turns out that my character is still somewhat indecisive. Everyone will hesitate. Zi Sheqing said, it just depends on the speed of the decision. Chu Yang nodded slowly. The two of them stood in the rain for a while and slowly walked back. Unlike before, Chu Yang's heart was full of fire now. Those must be my brothers. Although I have no evidence, but other than them, no one else can give me such a sense of familiarity and intimacy. I'm waiting for you. I'm looking forward to you. Brothers, quickly come up. The heavens are ours. Chu Yang's face was a little red and he moved. Walking into the room, Ling Hanxue and the rest were all stunned. In their eyes, Chu Yang, who was more powerful, was like a drowned rat, while Zi Sheqing was actually not wet at all. This was not right. No matter how much Chu Yang protected Zi Sheqing, it would not be Chu Yang who was drenched while Zi Sheqing was fine. If Chu Yang used his martial arts, it would naturally be possible. But in the current situation, he obviously did not. This discovery made the hearts of Ling Hanwu and the three supreme martial artist elders jump. Including them, all they saw was that Zi Sheqing was just an ordinary girl with no cultivation at all. However, the current facts could only prove one thing. They were all wrong. This pitilessly beautiful woman was definitely an unfathomable expert. because they could not see through her cultivation at all. No wonder Chu Yang dared to bring 2 girls alone and travel tens of thousands of miles. With such a terrifying expert by his side, what was there to be afraid of? Zi Xiecheng smiled lightly, greeted them and entered her and Chu Le-er's room. Chu Yang was a little puzzled. He scratched his head. Zi Xiecheng was obviously doing this on purpose. He had intentionally used such a subtle method to intimidate the Ling family. Why? Chu Yang looked at Ling Hanwu with a scrutinizing gaze. Ling Hanwu also frowned and started to think. His gaze slowly moved and swept past a thin and weak young man at the innermost part of the group. That young man raised his head and lowered it again. His face was pale and he looked a little thin and weak, somewhat pitiful. However, Chu Yang knew that this was definitely caused by his martial arts and not his weak body. And this young man was also the one with the weakest cultivation in the Ling clan group. He was not even at the emperor level. Ling Hanwu and Ling Hanxue had also never introduced him to Chu Yang. Ling Hanwu frowned and moved his gaze away from his face. Then, he looked at the few martial saint and supreme martial artist experts with a sharp gaze. Under his sharp gaze, 3 people's expressions changed slightly, and they avoided his gaze. Ling Hanwu snorted heavily and muttered to himself, "Bastard. You've embarrassed yourself all the way to the south." Chu Yang smiled faintly and said, "Who is this duke?" "This is my nephew. I brought him here to broaden his horizons," Ling Hanwu said somewhat embarrassedly. "Your nephew is really handsome and promising at a young age. Outstanding. Elegant. Talented," Chu Yang said with a smile full of deep meaning. Chu Yang purposely emphasized the word heroic and the word romantic, and dragged out his intonation. Ling Hanwu blushed and said, "Young brother is really clever. However, some things will definitely not happen." Chu Yang smiled gently and said, "I believe you." Then, he said, "It's raining, I'm going to take a nap." Then, he turned and left. The moment he stepped out of the door, that thin and weak young man suddenly raised his head and looked at Chu Yang's back with jealousy in his eyes. Chapter 958. Ling Hanwu watched Chu Yang leave, his eyes full of admiration and seriousness. This young man was definitely not simple. Initially, he had lured him here only because he was the younger brother of his old friend and also the successor of his love rival. Therefore, Ling Hanwu wanted to see what this young man was like. Secondly, it was because he really liked what this young man had done. Especially using his beauty to lure a foppish young master to kill him, it was even more satisfying. "Don't you like beauties? I'll let you die because of beauties." To a pervert, this was undoubtedly the most satisfying way to die. But after interacting with him, he realized that this young man was far more terrifying than he had expected. But until today, he realized that he had still greatly underestimated him. What a terrifying person. He was silent for a long time before he said, "Shuang-er, you like that woman?" That young man lowered his head. He didn't speak. Ling Hanwu said, "So you want to kill Chu Yang?" That young man still didn't speak. Ling Hanwu didn't pay any attention to him. He continued, "And you've already made arrangements? You're about to take action?" That young man raised his head slightly and still didn't speak. Ling Hanwu said lightly, "I won't interfere with you and I won't stop you. Young men will have to suffer some hardships. Even if these hardships are at the cost of their own lives, you can do as you wish. But if he succeeds, it's his bad luck. If he dies, it's your bad luck. The Ling clan has nothing to do with this." Ling Hanwu stood up and went back to his room. A supreme martial artist considered for a while and followed him out. "Second master, aren't we sending young Master Shuang to his death? The other party is unfathomable and they've taken precautions. And today, they've given us a warning. Once young Master Shuang takes action, they'll definitely not show mercy." Ling Hanwu said coldly, "You're right. The other party has already given us a warning. This warning is to give us face. Otherwise, they can take action directly." To him, the friendship between his master and me was something he could kill but didn't kill. Once was more than enough to pay off the debt. So, after this warning, if Shuang-er takes action, he'll definitely die. But as Chu Yang said, all those who covet beauties and want to snatch and kill shouldn't complain when they die. I, Ling Hanwu, am deeply ashamed that our Ling clan has such a person. I only hate that I can't do it myself. If he's courting death, that would be even better. After Ling Hanwu finished speaking coldly, he turned around and entered the room. He only left one sentence: if anyone wants to help him, even if they die, it has nothing to do with the Ling family. Even if Lord Consecrator blames someone, he can only blame me. If anyone wants to seek revenge because of this, they'll have to step over my dead body first. The supreme martial artist was stunned speechless. He sighed and muttered, "Young men are full of vigor and vigor. How could Master Shuang not be tempted? Although it's too much to kill Chu Yang, Second Master's temper should really be changed. Don't tell me you treat your own family members the same as those perverts outside." In the room, as Chu Yang walked in, steam came out of his body. In a moment, his clothes were clean and he felt refreshed. He sat down at the table and said, "You want to do it yourself?" Zi Sheqing said coldly, "That guy is the god-grandson of some high consecrator, used to inherit the family name. Haha, he actually wanted to use drugs to capture Le and threaten you. Then, he sent someone to ambush you, kill you, and take over me. This plan is really vicious. I didn't expect this guy to be so vicious even though he didn't say anything." That guy was called Du Hanzhuang. He was the god-grandson of Du Morcho, the current high consecrator of the Ling clan. He came out this time purely to broaden his horizons. For the sake of martial arts, Du Morcho never married. When he was old, he felt that it was difficult to continue the family name. So, he took in a god-grandson and changed his surname to Du. In fact, there were many people who did this in the big clans. Du Hanzhuang had taken a fancy to Zi Sheqing's beauty. These few days, he had been dreaming of her. After hesitating and struggling for a few days, he finally decided to do it. He gathered his confidants and plotted in his room. But what kind of cultivation did Zi Sheqing have? Even if Zi Sheqing was dozens of miles away, she would still be able to hear his plot clearly, not to mention right under her nose. Although there was a martial saint-level shield, such a shield was as good as nothing to Zi Sheqing. Chu Yang smiled amusedly. "I see. Ling Hanwu must be feeling very frustrated now. What he hates the most are foppish young masters. But there's actually such a person among the people he brought along." Then, a murderous look appeared in his eyes. "He actually used Le. You don't have to care about this." Zi Sheqing smiled lightly. "So, you should sleep tonight. If they take action, it's not suitable for you to take action." That night, Du Hanzhuang thought for a long time and finally decided to take action. A few people had already reminded him that the woman was not simple. However, a young woman, even if she was powerful, how powerful could she be? Rain not getting wet. Even a martial king could do it. Using this as a reason to be powerful, wasn't it ridiculous? Besides, if he couldn't have such a peerless beauty in his life, wouldn't he have wasted his life? The more Du Hanzhuang thought about it, the more his heart burned. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. That night, Chu Yang slept soundly with his head covered. Even if the sky fell, there would be someone to hold it up. What was there for him to worry about? Early morning of the second day. Everyone got up and went out. They didn't find anything unusual. But when the team gathered outside and prepared to set off, they realized that 5 people were missing. Chu Yang, Zi Sheqing, and Chu Le walked at the front calmly. This time, Chu Le was naturally really calm and composed. Because she didn't know anything. But Chu Yang and Zi Sheqing knew what was going on. Ling Hanwu frowned and shouted, "Go and find her." Du Hanzhuang, 3 martial saints and 1 martial monarch were missing. They disappeared without a trace. Last night, they had been listening attentively. They heard Du Hanzhuang giving orders in a low voice, and even the sound of his hand gestures. Then, the sound of 5 people moving out. Then, there was no then. Because everything had suddenly disappeared. This kind of situation caused everyone to be greatly shocked. Someone went to those few rooms to search again, but still didn't find anything. They checked far and near, but still didn't find anything. Ling Hanwu listened to the report and his pupils shrank. He looked at Chu Yang and Zi Xiecheng silently and didn't say anything. There was disappointment, joy, and disappointment in his eyes. But a supreme martial artist of the Ling clan felt a little uncomfortable. Along the way, he walked to Zi Xiecheng and said lightly, "Miss Zi, good trick. May I ask, how did Miss Zi do it?" Zi Xiecheng raised her eyes coldly and looked at him. "So all of you are clear about it." This supreme martial artist was stunned and a little speechless. He obviously knew, but he allowed his brother to kidnap a civilian girl. This was something that couldn't be justified. Although the other party wasn't a civilian girl, he swallowed his saliva and said, "Please enlighten me, Miss Zi." Zi Xiecheng said coldly, "Actually, I know all of you know, but I thought all of you would pretend to be deaf and dumb. Originally, I was very satisfied with your Ling clan so far. But you really shouldn't keep silent." This supreme martial artist said lightly, "It's a pity that even if our brother made a mistake, he should teach himself a lesson. As for others, they taught our unfilial brother a lesson, but they should also give us an explanation." Zi Xiecheng's eyebrows frowned dangerously and she said lightly, "Is that so?" "Exactly. Miss Zi, you killed people. Don't tell me you don't even give us an explanation." This supreme martial artist asked tit for tat. "I thought your Ling clan would give me an explanation." Zi Xiecheng said with some surprise, "I didn't expect you to come here to ask me for an explanation. If I'm just a weak girl, then, who should I ask for an explanation now?" This supreme martial artist said lightly, "Unfortunately, Miss Zi, you're not a weak girl." Zi Xiecheng nodded slowly. "Okay, I'll give you an explanation. This explanation is, they deserved to die." The anger on this supreme martial artist's face became more and more intense. He said, "Even if they deserved to die, you shouldn't be the one to kill them." Zi Xiecheng laughed softly. "Outsiders shouldn't be the one to kill them, but you don't know how to do it yourself. Is this what you mean? Now that I've killed them, what are you going to do?" This supreme martial artist said angrily, "You've killed people, so you should at least leave their corpses behind. Don't forget, the people in front of you are from the Ling clan." "Corpses?" Zi Xiecheng said sarcastically, "Don't tell me you still want to wear mourning clothes and be a filial grandson." She paused and said, "So what if you're from the Ling clan?" This supreme martial artist's face turned red. "Miss Zi, you've gone too far." Zi Xiecheng said impatiently, "Am I the one who's gone too far, or is it your Ling clan? You snatched a girl first, and now you're denouncing me. Am I the one who's gone too far? This is the martial world." This supreme martial artist said gloomily, "Miss Zi, with your cultivation, you should know that even if you want to be chivalrous, you also need capital and strength. You've gone too far. Since that's the case, I don't mind going too far for once." Zi Xiecheng said lightly, "Just now, you said that the Ling clan can only be punished by yourselves. I wonder if it's okay for me to punish you." This supreme martial artist stared at her for a while, and suddenly laughed. "Miss Zi, do you want to verify with me? I welcome you with open arms." "That's exactly what I want." Zi Xiecheng shook her head lightly. "No, I just want to punish you." Suddenly, she raised her hand and gave a slap. This supreme martial artist clearly saw that fair little hand coming towards him. He also wanted to block it, and also wanted to shake his head and dodge it. However, even though he thought of everything, he still couldn't dodge it. The speed was so slow, and he actually didn't dodge it. Smack! There was a loud and clear sound. This supreme martial artist's body was sent flying out from the horse like a rocket. He flailed his arms and legs in the air, somersaulting and tumbling all the way out for more than 1,000 feet. Zi Xiecheng didn't move an inch on the horse, her eyes cold. The other two supreme martial artists and Ling Hanwu were shocked and turned to look. The few of them had heard the conversation between the two just now. Ling Hanwu wanted to stop them, but in the blink of an eye, a supreme martial artist was actually sent flying. He didn't have the strength to fight back. The other two supreme martial artists snorted, their eyes full of anger. In a flash, they were about to make a move. "You clearly know who's right and who's wrong, yet you still want to make a move?" Zi Xiecheng asked lightly. At this moment, That supreme martial artist who was sent flying also flew back with a swoosh. He was panting heavily, his eyes full of anger. Half of his face was already swollen. Chu Yang looked on coldly from the side, not stopping them. In the morning, Zi Xieching had once said to him, "Ling Hanwu and your teacher are good friends, but there are too few such people in the aristocratic families. Don't think that everyone in the Ling clan is good just because you're good friends with Ling Hanwu. Today, I'll show you the true nature of aristocratic families." At that time, Chu Yang still didn't think much of it. Because since Ling Hanwu allowed them to die last night, it meant that he thought that they only had themselves to blame, and wouldn't do anything wrong today. He didn't expect that the conflict had already started while the words were still in his ears. Chu Yang looked on silently. Looking at the three supreme martial artists and a few martial saints surrounding Zi Xieching, the bitterness in his heart also slowly expanded. Aristocratic families were indeed aristocratic families. Even though these people knew what was right and wrong, they were all righteous. Every one of them was a righteous person, but when it came to their own people, they were more protective of their own people. Even if you helped their clan to get rid of the malignant tumor, you've also damaged their clan's authority. Therefore, there had to be an explanation. And the explanation now was for the clan's reputation. Under this premise, there was no reason to talk about it. Right was wrong was wrong. What do you say? Chu Yang asked Ling Hanwu, who came to his side quietly. There was bitterness on Ling Hanwu's face. He said, "This is what aristocratic families are like. And what I dislike the most." He let out a long sigh and said, "The current aristocratic families have already changed. They've already become forces." Chu Yang frowned. Aristocratic families, forces. Ling Hanwu shook his head bitterly. The so-called righteousness and the rules of the martial world are just justice under the strong. Chu Yang, let them fight it out. Just don't kill anyone. Chu Yang grunted and said lightly, "Uncle, if the Ling clan does something wrong and offends a strong enemy, then you're right. You know that the Ling clan is in the wrong. Will you also participate in the war?" Ling Hanwu smiled bitterly and said, "I don't know." Chu Yang nodded. "I understand." He pondered for a while and said slowly, "So, this is what aristocratic families are like." He let out a long sigh and said, "Aristocratic families are ultimately not as good as the country." He remembered that although there were continuous battles in the lower three heavens, there weren't many experts. But there were officials and legal systems. So, it looked much more orderly than the lower three heavens and the upper three heavens. But in the upper three heavens, it made people very uncomfortable. So, this was why. Aristocratic families were always protective of their own people. Even if their own people were unpardonably evil, they still had to give an explanation if others killed them, and they would never suffer in silence. Even if there was someone like Ling Hanwu, it couldn't change the nature of aristocratic families. Or rather, even if Ling Hanwu became the clan master of the Ling clan, it couldn't change. If the Tribulation Sword Master reorganized the heavens, and such a big aristocratic family was replaced by another big aristocratic family, wouldn't it be the same as changing the soup but not the medicine? Chu Yang pondered in his heart. What should I do in the future? Zi Xieching let out a shrill cry. The battle had begun. Chapter 959. Chu Yang didn't turn back. He didn't care about the battle situation at all. He said indifferently, "You don't know means. If something like this happens in the future, you'll still stand on the side of the clan and fight for no reason? For the sake of the Ling clan, you'll give up your beliefs?" Ling Hanwu smiled bitterly and said, "You must force me to make a choice and tell me the answer, right?" Chu Yang nodded. Ling Hanwu took a deep breath. "The clan gave birth to me and raised me until I'm this old. If the clan is right, the clan is right, I'll naturally fight for the clan with all my might. But if the clan is wrong, if the clan is wrong," Ling Hanwu said word by word, "I'll go to the enemy myself to ask for forgiveness and resolve the grudges. If the grudges can't be resolved, I'll choose to leave far away, leave my clan." He lowered his head sadly. "For this, I've already left once. But you've still come back in the end," Chu Yang said indifferently. "So, You swore to kill all the fops in the world and kill all the people who force women. But there are people around you and in your clan, but you don't kill them. You want to kill them, but you won't do it yourself. So, you use others to do your dirty work and let us kill him. But after we kill him, there's a contradiction. That's the situation now. And in such a situation, you propose to let them fight. To resolve the grudges through battle. Chu Yang commented accurately, so, you're a righteous person, but you don't have a bottom line. I can only say this, you're a righteous fence-sitter. A righteous fence-sitter. This sentence seemed very funny, but after Ling Hanwu heard it, his heart shook. He murmured, no matter righteous or noble, a fence-sitter will always be a fence-sitter. Chu Yang snorted and said, so, Yi Chu Chen doesn't like you, but my teacher. Because on this point, you're far inferior to my teacher. No matter what kind of setbacks my teacher has faced, he hasn't changed. But you're changing all the time. Although your infatuation hasn't changed, your standpoint has changed countless times. Ling Hanwu's expression was bitter. He murmured, do you know, the reason why I gave up back then was because I'm not as good as your teacher. So, you're much more pitiful than my teacher, Chu Yang said with some pity. Ling Hanwu let out a long sigh. Oh, you don't seem to be worried about this battle at all, Ling Hanwu said. There's no use worrying. Chu Yang laughed and said, if I'm worried about Little Z's victory, then I've already started worrying. Chu Yang's strength. Now, even Chu Yang didn't dare to believe in this infatuated and pitiful Ling Hanwu. Trump card. After all, Hanwu. Ling Ti Chu Yang want TTS worry. To worry. The only thing I need to worry about is whether or not this big sister will slaughter the Ling family in a fit of rage. In the arena, Zi Sheqing's white robe fluttered in the wind. Her long sleeves fluttered in the wind, making her look like an immortal. The three clan T of their Thestia saw the energy that leaked out was tightly sealed by Zi Sheqing. To TSTST, S, TTSS? With Zi Sheqing's cultivation, she could easily get rid of the three of them. But she dragged it out and did not finish it. Because one of the supreme martial artists of the Ling clan had actually entered the Dao realm under Zi Sheqing's immense pressure during the intense battle. And, the supreme martial artist's Dao state's power was purer than Chu Yang's. Because this was a true Dao state that was born from the moment of life and death. Zi Sheqing was excited. How could she let it go? Her hands kept making mysterious gestures, collecting all the Dao state's power. She didn't even leave behind a little bit of the comprehension that this supreme martial artist needed. In other words, even if this supreme martial artist knew that he had entered the Dao state, he wouldn't get any benefit. The battle continued. Zi Sheqing was calm, but the two supreme martial artists of the Ling clan were anxious. They launched a strong attack at the same time. Once they moved, the supreme martial artist who was in the Dao state also woke up. They attacked at the same time. Zi Sheqing was furious. I've finally collected some Dao state's power, but you've spoiled it. Enraged, Xiao Chen's figure moved like lightning. A white shadow swept past with a shua sound. Bang, bang, bang. The three supreme martial artists staggered backward. Step by step, they retreated more than 10 steps. Then, their faces turned pale and they spat out a mouthful of blood. Zi Sheqing waved her two white sleeves towards the sky. The power gathered during this battle was thrown out at the same time. It was like throwing out a bomb. After a long time, there was a boom in the sky. A black hole suddenly appeared in the sky and disappeared. Zi Sheqing stood with her hands behind her back. She said lightly, don't look for me for an explanation, and don't look for me for justice. Otherwise, I'll look for your entire clan to talk about what justice is. I'll let your clan know what justice is. The three supreme martial artists were scared out of their wits. They didn't dare to take a step forward. The three of them felt that with this woman's strength, it would be easier for her to kill the three of them. There's no justice for you in front of me. Zi Sheqing said lightly, I'm not killing you this time because I'm repaying Chu Yang's master a favor. If your high priest is unhappy and wants justice, I'll wait here. Let him come. Chu Le watched from the side. She couldn't help but be moved. Her eyes lit up and she almost clapped her hands and cheered. Too powerful, too domineering. As a woman, she should be like this. After going through such a thing, it was naturally inconvenient for both parties to walk together. Chu Yang and Ling Hanwu smiled bitterly at each other and went their separate ways. Of course, everyone had the same goal. It was just that there was a sequence. Chu Yang and Zi Sheqing walked in front, while Ling Hanwu and the rest walked behind. This atmosphere was the most awkward. Fortunately, they met more and more people along the way. When they reached the last fork, there was an endless stream of people from all walks of life. Right in front of them was a straight road. It was at least 1,000 feet wide. At the far end was a huge city. At the intersection, there were hundreds of men in green standing in an orderly manner. Once a pharmacist came and verified his identity, someone would arrange for a man in green to lead him into the city and into the designated resting area. Everything was done in an orderly manner. Pharmacists from all walks of life swarmed in, but the intersection didn't seem crowded at all. That was because those people in green immediately rushed back after leading the pharmacists in. When Chu Yang arrived, a man in green in his 40s immediately came up to him. "Are you here to participate in the medicine banquet?" Chu Yang smiled and said, "Yes." The man in green said respectfully, "May I know your surname? Please identify yourself." "My surname is Chu," Chu Yang said lightly. He reached out and took out the jade token that Han Xiaoran had prepared for him and handed it over. That man took it and looked at it. He was instantly filled with respect. "So it's the chief physician of the Southeast Law Enforcement Hall. Please forgive me for not coming out to welcome you." As he said, he sized up Chu Yang carefully. Then, he waved his hand and called over a man in green. He said, "Send Chu Yang to the Orchard Palace to rest." That man in green lowered his head and replied, "Yes." He stood beside Chu Yang and said respectfully, "Chu Yang, please follow me." Chu Yang smiled and said, "Thank you." Then, he followed behind him and walked in. But he was a little confused. He thought to himself, "I heard from afar that the accommodations arranged for me were so-and-so inn, so-and-so restaurant, or so-and-so residence. But the accommodations arranged for me were the Orchard Palace?" Before this, there didn't seem to be anyone who would enter a residence with the name so-and-so garden. Could it be that the physicians of the law enforcement officers were treated with special courtesy? After walking for more than 10 miles, Chu Yang suddenly stopped. In front of him was a big city. On the city wall, 3 big words came into his sight. Tianji City. Chu Yang looked at these 3 words and couldn't help but think of Mo Tianji. He thought to himself, if Mo Tianji were to live in this city and become the city lord, he would really live up to his name. Chu Yang, our Zhuge clan's Tianji City has always been famous in the world. I believe Chu Yang will definitely not be disappointed if you live in it, the man in green who led the way said. Yes, what a domineering name, Chu Yang praised. The Zhuge clan is indeed an intelligent clan. Even its name has the word Tianji. It's really the master of calculation and manipulation who can control Tianji. That's right. The Zhuge clan has always been known as the divulgators of Tianji. The man in green laughed and said very proudly, "In our Zhuge clan, there is no Tianji that cannot be understood." Chu Yang smiled lightly and said, "Looks like I have to do a divination after I go in." He said softly, "A divination of good and bad fortune." The man in green laughed and said, "If Chu Yang wants to do a divination, you've really come to the right place in our Zhuge clan's Tianji City. In the city, there's almost one fortune teller in every 3 to 5 steps. And most of them are quite capable." Chu Yang laughed loudly. So he entered slowly. Along the way, he saw that there were indeed fortune-telling stalls everywhere. And there were also many fortune-telling stalls in the shops on both sides of the city. The stall owners were all dressed in feathered clothes and tall crowns. They were lean and had an otherworldly appearance. Damn it, no wonder this is Diwu Qingrou's base camp. Everyone here looks very sinister. Chu Yang muttered in his heart. In his dantian, the sword spirit, who had been in seclusion to recover his spirit, suddenly appeared and said, "Where have we come to? Why does it feel so familiar?" "This is Tianji City," Chu Yang said mentally. Zi Sheqing, who was at the side, looked at him lightly and didn't say anything. "So it's here." The sword spirit was obviously excited and said, "In Tianji City, there's a piece of my sword intent here. As long as you keep it, I'll use the sword intent to help you. You'll be able to gather the 7 shades cold energy, the evil dragon dagger's cold energy and the cold energy from the mysterious yin spring and turn them into your own power. And you can also absorb the essence of the heavens and earth that you obtained from the poisonous flood dragon." Chu Yang was delighted. "Really? 2 things. First, Yi Shiyu came to find me today and asked me to clear his name. He said that ever since I wrote about him, his name has been ruined by me. Here, I'll make it clear, I'm very familiar with Yi Shiyu. At that time, I saw that she was very beautiful, so I kissed her and touched her. In the end, I took off her clothes and looked at her. That's all. Until now, I've been using eye drops, washing my hands and brushing my teeth. In summary, I've come to the conclusion, Yi Shiyu is definitely a ladyboy. Second, I'll recommend a book Charging Sword by a friend. Introduction: a sword fanatic who loves swords more than his life. His greatest misfortune is that he's in a low-level martial world where ancient martial arts are declining and sword arts are declining. He's unable to pursue the limits of sword arts. The greatest misfortune of a disciple from a big clan is that he's in a high-level sword arts world. He has no choice but to embark on the path of sword cultivation. However, his aptitude is low and it's difficult for him to achieve anything. Coincidentally, the soul of such a sword fanatic transmigrated through time and space and came to a different world where sword arts were dominating. His soul and memories merged with the soul of such a disciple. Thus, a sword arts genius was born in this world. There are 3,000 great Daos, but only my sword arts. My sword arts are unstoppable. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,